So yeah, should we have some kind of special intro before we do the reaction part? I guess depending on how we cut this together, or if the reaction is going to be part of the audio of the podcast. Let's just introduce ourselves real quick. I don't know, man.
All right. My name.
I'm
Yes, go ahead.
TequilaZaku. I'm gonna be rude and interrupt my co-host a lot. That's me.
My name is ThermiteKitty. I'm on the internet under a variety of different names. I've got very bad SEO, and I will be mostly silent in order to allow my co-host to talk, which is going to be infuriating, and then I'm going to talk right as he talks.
And then I'm going to yell at him for not talking enough, and we're going to yell all over the episode.
Yeah, I mean, now, this first one might be a little rough, but as you can tell from the title of this podcast, we're going to do this at least 99 more times, so hopefully, at some point, this will be good.
Poggers.
And speaking of poggers, we are watching Arifureta.
A show for real gamers, by real gamers, I'm assuming.
Now, I've kept myself extremely blind as to this, so I didn't look anything up. When we do the actual discussion portion, I will look up things like the name, like the full name, and the author, and how this was generally received, but I figure the first part should just be a pure blind dive right in, see what's going on.
I remember some vague plot details, some character designs, some major complaints people have had about it, but you know, I think we can just jump right into it and see how things go.
Yeah, if we know anything, or we realized we knew anything, we can bring that up into discussion.
So come along with us, kids.
Oh boy.
Yeah? Oh man.
This is real CG.
Right.
So I suppose this is meant to evoke a sense of mystery, yeah?
I suppose.
Now, is this the intro?
I think. This would be really wacky if it wasn't the opening.
Oh yeah, there we are. I was quite worried that for, the concept of the series, a lot of first episodes don't include the intro, so I was quite worried we weren't going to get a lot of intros.
Yeah, I mean, I like watching the intros. I'm not sure I like watching this intro, but I like watching the intros in general.
Yeah. I mean, some of these visuals are pretty cool.
I don't know, man. This is a lot of static panning and random visual effects layered upon.
That's a real. We have one still, and we're just gonna put some visual effects over it.
This is a real. We just licensed Adobe After Effects opening. This has been entirely in English, hasn't it?
Yeah. I actually do like this opening a fair bit. It's like the audio of it. The visuals have something to be desired.
It's almost okay if I don't listen to the lyrics. Monster of the Abyss, Arifureta from Commonplace to World's Strongest.
Oh boy, it's so dark. Okay, we're not starting off with the, coming from another worlds. But clearly he has some understanding of what the world is like.
No, it's an edgy bunny. Watch out.
It's got the thick thighs.
What is it with edgy stuff and fucking bunnies?
It's got the Alice in Wonderland thing going on, I guess.
Do you think it would be too much to assume that this is a Monty Python reference?
Oh boy, these effects.
What, huh? What is happening?
Oh boy. Oh boy. Okay.
By the way, is one of us doing a synopsis for this one? Like, are we writing a synopsis? Are we gonna try to find one on the wiki somewhere?
I'm thinking I might find one from a wiki and then also go through the episode. Okay, so there's an alchemy system. Oh no! Oh, these textures are so bad! I mean, I've done a very bad job describing what this looks like, but...
res start? Like, what we're doing, why we're doing it in a medias res? Because we already did a weird flash forward in the middle of, like, the opening over that weird CG thing.
Right, it's...
I guess we might not cut back, which I would appreciate. You know, I personally dislike super over-explained media, but so far my investment in everything that's happening is pretty low.
But I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubts. Okay, so yeah, we are cutting
10
back.
days before.
So I'm guessing he's getting the arm back then.
Oh boy.
It does seem like we are skipping past the, you know, like clearly he was brought here from the classroom we saw in the opening.
I guess so, but I feel like we're still gonna come back to that. Wait, is he talking about a behemoth from Final Fantasy?
Okay. Oh, I mean, the visuals are extremely rough, but so far the storytelling isn't the worst.
Really? So
Yeah.
far I'm not seeing, like, quite the point in all these cuts. I mean...
Like, I'm hoping there is something that ties it together at the end. But right now it does feel just kind of disorienting for the sake of being disorienting.
I know this voice actor from somewhere. Oh boy!
I think those are the exact same models from Overlord Season 3. Now, I don't think this is good content for an audio-only medium, but I do have to stress that most of the effects do look like they're made, like, they look like 90s CGI.
This looks like half an episode of Reboot clashed with half an episode of SAO.
Yeah. Also, the character designs are very bad. I mean, I assume that's because this is a total party kill situation. Like, we're not supposed to be really focusing on any of these characters, but still.
I assume it's all just gonna be, like, set up for how our main character's a cool guy, and, like, not, like, establishing what he's like.
I mean, I assume this is where he's gonna get his super OP special skill.
I don't know, man. I think this is just more set up for how, he got bullied by his classmates and they didn't think he was cool.
Okay.
So he's talking to himself?
I think he's just thinking.
Yeah, man, it's a sort of phantom pain. It's the pain of the soldiers who fought for a lifetime.
Okay, was that intentional?
By the evil smirk fired shot from the random soldier man, I assume it's intentional.
Also, the eye catch was just a bunch of concept arts.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I could see you liking that aesthetic, but the problem is that it's a little too close to the actual animation. Okay, I'm glad we're not lingering on that as a mystery.
Yeah. Did he try to eat him and miss?
I guess so.
What? He just, it's like immersed his face in the floor like you would immerse your face in cold water after long nights of hangovers.
Also, Nagumo ends up being significantly, like, lower and further away from the monster when he's falling. I guess because the rest of the platform was holding up the monster.
So this is one of the first, besides the opening, this is one of the what was I trying to say? Yeah, it was besides the them initially being in a classroom in the opening, this is one of the first instances of even seeing that this is an isekai.
Yeah.
Or rather that this has, like, common people clothes.
Now, I don't know if I would take that as all my classmates betrayed me. Feels like one guy who was not part of his class betrayed him.
Is that the teacher, or is it just like the magic teacher?
I mean, I don't think we know yet.
That's true. We don't know yet. It's just it's. I guess it's still a relevant question in a sort of battle royale way.
It is also interesting that he's stating
Oh,
right now that
we're getting edgy.
Yeah, like his main focus is going back to the real world, as opposed to just kind of staying around here forever.
Clearly, he's already had some trust issues before this. Oh man, look who thinks he's cool now.
Okay.
He sure got over not having an arm real quick.
Oh yeah, it's not bleeding out or anything. Also, the monsters do seem very... I mean, first of all, they do disappear when you kill them. But secondarily, they seem very, not like animals.
They are certainly
dove right
more
into the hole.
stupid than animals, seemingly. Judging by the fact that they just kind of jumped in that hole.
Yeah, I'm assuming they must be artificial then. You didn't cook it!
To be fair, he probably doesn't have the means to cook it.
Sure.
Oh no, it's crawling in his skin! These wounds, they will not heal!
I don't know, it looks like his wound healed very fast.
Damn it!
Okay. So I guess he's being monsterized.
No, you can clearly see by this visual that he's becoming Danny Phantom. His hair's even white. He's going ghost! Right, because he has the magic stone and the water from it makes his curse go away.
Or rather, I think it's that, it would have destroyed him, but it was the holy water was constantly healing him while the infection was destroying him.
You don't look like a demon. Your hair color changed. Chill the fuck out.
Yeah, show me these skills.
Yeah, fucking, you know the best. I love video game screens for real magic. Really makes me feel that the magic's special.
I also do question the choice of, showing off this new ability by just moving some stones. I feel like there's enough that you could create a subgenre of in another world and also have to eat monsters.
Yeah, but you couldn't even include Dungeon Meshi, because it's not in another world.
Oh yeah. I mean, even without Dungeon Meshi, I think there's enough. Also, boy, this feels so visual novel in the sense that I do think, I do enjoy on some level reading, these big long things in visual novels because, you can take it at your own pace and write stuff down if you want to. But in a visual medium where it's gonna just keep on moving and you can't, pause or, I mean, you can, but on TV you can't pause, you can't fast forward. It's quite a bit.
I don't know, I feel like listening to people recite these endless thing of, oh my fucking god, fuck off.
But, yeah, you got bullets!
Why would you know how to build a gun? Whatever. I feel like watching people go through these endless tirades about random world-building facts just feels like watching someone else's D&D campaign that they're playing with themselves, which is intensely sad.
I think a big part of it is also...
It's got that very much like, my playgroup threw me out because I was an asshole, so now I'm gonna do my own campaign energy.
Ah, he can finally kill the bunny with the thick thighs.
I hate that my language is being co-opted for this bullshit.
Oh, I'm so glad that you, a German speaker, happened to be here, because I feel like that's going to be very useful for a lot of Isekai.
Oh boy, will it ever. That means thunder.
Now, I don't think we need this exposition specifically.
We've been told a lot of exposition, but the one thing that I haven't been told is why I should care.
I think a part of it is also, like, for more straight fantasy series, something like Fate has a lot of just, let's talk about the magic system. But it does go over, like, a long period of time, and it builds on itself. Whereas this is a lot to get in the first episode.
Usually, like, we get set up on the characters before we get set up on the magic, which is something I would appreciate the stuff like Fate Zero over this. Because, so what do we know about our main character so far? He doesn't want to die.
I mean, also, his classmates don't like him.
Yeah.
He's antisocial. He's willing to eat monsters.
He's antisocial, but he seemed perfectly fine talking to people, and he seemed perfectly friendly with that female classmate of his, so... He's just... We know that he's not very strong then, and is stronger now.
Okay, so he also invented flashbangs.
Yes, and that he's now a bit tasty in a fight. But we really don't know what kind of guy he is, because not wanting to die is a pretty general character trait, shared by a lot of human beings.
I mean, I guess we can also imply that he's the kind of person who would learn how to make an entire gun from scratch.
I guess so. Yeah. I wonder how long this is supposed to have taken.
Yeah, I kind of wish we had, like, a wall or something to, you know, slowly have tick marks on. Because this does feel like it's been, like, maybe an hour or two. But there's no way.
Yeah, right. Like, I kind of would like to... I mean, you're right. It would be an interesting thing to confound upon whether he was into guns before and knew a lot about their construction or something, or whether he just kind of winged it, whether this is mostly magic, or whether this is some knowledge that was imparted upon him by this, or whether he's basically just made a fancy magic wand in the shape of a gun.
Okay.
But
and so the episode does end
with... I guess we're
with...
not gonna get any of that.
So the episode ends with his... yeah, that is the girl that he was friends with, right?
No. I think this is a random different girl.
Okay, never mind. I mean, she is very highlighted in the ending, which also, good transition into the ending then.
And we don't even know how he got his eye patch in automail.
Lots of girls and fan service in the ending.
Yeah, extremely.
I mean, this could just be, you know, the ending being very fan-servicey, but it feels very strange that then we focused almost entirely on just on him in a cave for the entire first episode instead of introducing any of this, if the girls are supposed to be, like, a draw for the series.
Yeah, this strikes me as one of those, we were in medias res because we wanted to start with some kind of action scene thing.
Oh, that actually makes a lot of sense. If the original light novel was very, like, just standing around and learning stuff for, like, many, many chapters, and then this is, like, the first time they get into actual danger.
Yeah. Which, I understand that some people like that stuff. I'm perfectly fine having a slow opening. if it feels more, like worthwhile setup for what we're actually going to do. Like this, for a first episode, this had like way too much. I don't know, it didn't feel like it focused on any of the parts that I would have liked it to have focused on.
Okay.
I'm not a very world-building centric sort of guy. I think it's interesting, but I prefer it's not what the entire thing is about. I like it in the background to the initial character interactions and setting up more what they're like rather than just what the world's like. Because so far, like, I don't know, this seems fairly unexciting.
Yeah. I mean, I am more of a world-building sort of person. I can enjoy it, but I think in that sense, this episode actually had not a lot of world-building to it. Like, something I enjoy about fantasy series in general is the fantastical part of it. Like, the fact that this is not a world you are used to. There are going to be things that surprise you. And most of this was not very surprising. Like, all we know about this fantasy world thus far is we got the magic monostones. It is a world where dungeons exist. The technology seems to mostly be on a, like generic 14th century area. And then, you fight monsters. Also magic.
Yeah, but again, to equate this to my D&D metaphor from earlier, this really feels like you're showing up to your campaign and your DM is like, today you're going to a dungeon to level up. And I'm like, well, yeah, but you're not just supposed to tell us that.
Right.
Like, there's real value in slightly sugarcoating that information. You're really taking, like, the magic out of this magical world.
Like, as a self-professed bad DM, I can definitely understand the appeal of, just doing it at the start. Like, just, you're in a dungeon, and then slowly, as you figure out what you want to do, like, fleshing out the worlds. But at the same time, you gotta have a little meat on those bones.
Yeah, you can't just, like, there's a difference between just doing something like this, starting us off in a dungeon, and then not giving us the context for that for a while. But, like, you're not using that opportunity to start off to do anything interesting with it. You're just kind of telling it mildly out of order.
Right.
It's not like it's confusing. I just don't quite see why we did it.
Yeah, like, the one thing I can kind of see is wanting to show that, okay, this isn't, this is the story of a main character who is going to go through some level of suffering. So you start it off explicitly with the suffering, then you go back and say, you flesh out a little of how he got there. But the main focus of this is the deep suffering, his hatred for other people, and then how he gets the super OP powers.
Right. And I would say the last one is the main focus because his deep suffering was being betrayed by one guy who is assumingly like a teacher sort of person, and his classmates being mildly rude to him.
Right.
Sometimes. And the guy wasn't even that bad. He was just like saying, oh yeah, you gotta try harder. It's not nice, but I wouldn't exactly call bullying or anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he seemed fairly, like, quick to just give up on the fact that anyone is ever trying to come at him, while acknowledging himself that he was extremely deep in the dungeon.
In the shot in the OP where we see all of his classmates, we don't see that guy. Whereas, like, I would assume we would, so I'm guessing he's a magic teacher from this world, as opposed to someone from his worlds.
Yeah, he looks like that. His name's Meld, which, his parents must have been big mahjong players.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's...
I
think the setup is definitely not as strong as it could have been. I think rather than splitting the focus between why he's a mad boy, why he's a strong boy, and why he's a sad boy, I feel like they should have focused on one of those for this episode. Feels very confused and like we don't know where we're going with this.
I also think they wasted a lot of time on, the rabbit monster and then the bear monster. Like, at the very start, with Hajime just kind of, like, looking at them and being very scared of them, and then, stating that they're scary. I feel like we could have really cut that down to the rabbit is scary, and then, oh no, the bear is even scarier. Then he goes into the pool, is hurt, and then we could have spent a lot more time on the montage of him becoming more and more OP. Like,
yeah.
Like, even something like, having him create some sort of ranged weapon that's garbage, and then later on, building up to, by the way, I know how to make a gun. I'm going to slowly start making a gun. Okay, now I have a gun. Like, some level of build-up would make it a lot cooler than...
Or maybe his classmates at least, like, bullying for the fact that he's too into guns, and then he builds a gun, which would have kind of tied in with all of the themes of, quote-unquote, themes of this episode.
Yeah, because that's also the thing. The flashbacks don't really thematically matter in respect to what is on either side of the flashback. Whereas I think it would have been a lot better if it was he's in the dungeon and then we cut to things from the past that parallel what's happening in the dungeon. Like he sees the bear attacking him as like his classmates attacking him.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's definitely something to him, but there's like we don't really get to see any of it.
Yeah, he doesn't really interact with anyone, and I feel like I'm gonna say this a lot, especially if we delve into the edgier zone of things, but not wanting to die is not a valid personality trait to base a character around. Yeah. And it always strikes me as a very hard, oh, look at these sheeple in their houses willing to be blown over, but I am no sheep, I am a wolf. Sort of thinking line from the people that are writing this type of stuff.
Yeah, a lot of isekai do delve into the like you want to put yourself in these shoes situation. Like a lot of them are power fantasies, and I am willing to go along with a power fantasy. The problem is this definitely did not make me none of this made me want to be in Hajime's shoes, and I don't mean just the the bad things happening, but also the good things as well. No part of this felt relatable. None of this was like, oh, I'm really happy that now he has the cool gun.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm interested to hear your commentary on that, because I'm someone who is not at all interested in power fantasy in the more direct sense of, like, power as violent power, as just, like, being able to beat up people real good. There's multiple types of power fantasy, but that one specifically was never really appealing to me in the way that I could understand watching a series for it. So I'm glad to have you here with me to guide me through the foibles of that.
All right, yeah, I'm happy to share that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Also,
yeah.
I feel we should probably say that this is Arifureta from Commonplace to World's Strongest, also known as Arifureta Shokugyō de Sekai Saikyō.
Yeah, give me some more facts.
This is written by Ryo Shirokome and illustrated by Takayaki. Ryo Shirokome does not seem to have done anything else too notable.
Is it still running?
Yep, it's still going.
Okay.
It's got the original light novel, there's a manga adaptation, obviously an anime adaptation. Like, it does seem like it's, quite a bit of an empire. The studio is, of course, White Fox, known for ReZero. It is a co-production with Asread, and Asread doesn't seem to be doing a lot of great stuff.
Great stuff, huh?
Like they did the Corpse Party OVAs. They did Big Order, if you remember Big Order.
Oh my god, that explains some of the CGI at least.
Future Diary.
Big Order. What else did they do?
Gairei Zero, Shuffle. Like they haven't done a whole lot of stuff. It's actually very interesting that this was a co-production at all. I assume that's more of a White Fox was doing other stuff and they needed help, as opposed to White Fox couldn't do this. Because White Fox is, I'd say they're very competent.
Yeah, I mean, this definitely looks like you got help. More like it looks like they needed more help.
Yeah.
I don't know. This entire thing strikes me as relatively low effort.
Oh, yeah, especially for the first episode, like the episode that should sell you on the entire series, which is why I think that the premise of our podcast makes sense. Like, sure, we're only watching one episode of each thing, but this should be the episode that says, this is why you should watch the rest. Like, it should be very indicative of the rest of the series. And I hope to God this is not indicative of the rest of the series.
If it's just gonna be more of him getting stronger, eating monsters, acquiring waifus, and getting betrayed by his classmates, in the same vein as this episode, I don't think it's gonna be that entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, all of that has been done better by other series. Like, the manga Remonster, for instance, goes real hard on just the main character deciding, alright, I'm very weak, but I'm just gonna eat monsters. And then he mostly just eats monsters for a while. And I do think, like, if that is the premise of the series, like, if that is why you want to be watching, then I think you got to go hard with it. Like, even the fact that he makes the gun here takes away from the idea that maybe he's going to get stronger by eating monsters. Like,
and
it's a weird dual thing to do.
While my expectations weren't high, my biggest disappointment with this is that it doesn't even go into the category of so edgy or, like, that it would be entertaining.
Right.
This is, like, pretty standard stuff, white hair, red eyes, I'm not gonna die, eating monsters, getting betrayed, evil anime smirks. This is all very much on the checklist for, this is all, like, on the first TV tropes page for edgy anime.
Yeah, I mean, even the choice of having one, just one person shoot him is clearly a way to then have it be that the rest of the cast is mostly good people and will follow them as well as him, and maybe they'll, get into arguments and stuff. It feels very meh. Like, nothing in this episode went hard. I guess I just wanted this episode to go hard on something.
Yeah, it feels very much like a bit of everything, but nothing really, Didn't really set up the characters, didn't really set up the power system, didn't really set up the plot, didn't really set up the world. Just kind of did a bunch of stuff. It just kind of starts.
Yeah, like,
This really intensely reminds me of experiences I had tuning into, like, a random episode 5 of something when I was 10 and just switching around TV channels.
Okay.
And it inspired about the same level of investment in me.
Yeah, I really feel like I feel like this is a result of bad, like, cultural movements. This feels like someone looked at it and said, anyone who watches Arifureta is going to watch the whole thing, so we don't need to have a good first episode. Like, we can just toss in all the stuff we need to do, and then, like, they're gonna watch the whole series. It's fine. Like, it doesn't have to be standouts.
Honestly, it feels to me a lot like everyone said, oh, episode 1's gotta have a bit of the action. No, we gotta put in the betrayal scene. Oh man, we gotta show off what a cool badass our main character is. And then everyone had their voice heard a little bit. This really is lacking some kind of coherent vision for what it wants to be.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're getting into the point where we're mostly just repeating points. So do you have anything else that stood out to you in this episode?
Oh, honestly, no. I mean, I guess the biggest part really is the art direction, in that it I don't know who would look at this and go, this is good. This really feels like there's some sort of bad studio interference. Like, I do not want to throw anyone under the bus with this. I do think this has to be the result of someone embezzling money or someone, like, making a conscious decision to sabotage the first episode. Or
really?
if not a conscious effort, then a lack of trying to create a good first episode.
I think I would, I'm less likely to just assume gross incompetence or malice in this case, and we just mostly assume that this is a case of no one quite cared that much, and so they all just said, well, yeah, we'll do it like this, it'll be fine. This strikes me as a series in whose making a lot of people said, don't worry, it'll be fine.
Ah, yes. So this anime was delayed for 2 years. There were a lot of staff changes. They reanimated a couple of episodes. Also, they did an entire art style change, which I think would explain the very simplified art style. I'll send you a quick image of, like, what they originally were trying to go for. It definitely has more of a 90s-ish look.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, that looks that reminds me, that looks like something that would have come out, like, 5 years earlier. Yeah, totally.
I think a big part of this is definitely missing the train. Like, I do think, like, you can do a good series at any point, but when creating a series, you gotta keep the current culture in tow. You gotta go, like, okay, if this how do I put this?
If this isn't that's the thing, right? I feel like and this is helping formulate this a bit.
Sure, please.
But this can't decide if it wants to be somebody's first or, like, 10th isekai show.
Yeah.
Because it's both, like, It both goes like yada yada yada, you already know this, but then doesn't get to anything that would be interesting if you're just trying to fast forward to the interesting parts.
Right. Yeah, I do think that is a big problem. Like, this isn't the quote-unquote post-isekai. Like, you already know what's going on, so we're going to give you a quick shot of a classroom, and now you know the rest. It's fine. We're just going to go right to the interesting subversion, twist, and all that. This is definitely a... Hopefully this is your third isekai specifically. If it's your first, you're not going to like it. If it's your fifth, you're not going to like it. But if it's number 3, it's going to be perfect. I mean, I don't believe that. I don't... Even if it's your third, I feel like you're going to look for something else. If you've seen SAO or if you've seen Overlord, I feel like that's enough for you to go, I can watch something else.
If you're really into the white-haired character with a long coat and wife 101 arm look, if you're really into it, you might settle for Arifureta.
Also, I do want to confirm that this is not how the light novel starts. This is an anime decision to cut right to this part of the dungeon. Apparently, there is a lot before that, set all of this up.
I mean, everything about how this episode was made makes complete sense, knowing that it was in production for like 5 years.
Yeah.
Because this says, 5 years worth of people have gone over this until the initial idea for what this episode was supposed to be ended up an utter fucking mess with absolutely no trace of a coherent vision for it.
So yeah.
Yeah.
I guess we'll leave it at that.
Do you want to get to our rating segment?
Yes, please. Can you introduce the rating segments?
Yes. So we will be rating this on 3 metrics. Our 3 metrics will be: how spicy was this episode? How interesting was it? How many, new ideas has this introduced? We're gonna be doing this for fucking 99 episodes. We're gonna be looking to be inspired a little bit here. We want something that stands out. Number 2 is how good was this? Just ranking, how much did we enjoy this? Was this qualitatively good? The fuck am I saying? Was this a qualitatively good episode of anime? Did we have a good time? Was this not a waste of 20 minutes plus 20 minutes of discussion of our lives? And lastly, how much of an isekai was this? Since we have a list of 100 different isekai, we actually had to stretch the definition pretty thin. So we're going to be rating how much of a personal idea of an isekai this conforms to. All right, are we doing the 4th rating?
The otherworldliness.
The otherworldliness.
I think if we're going to go with our personal conceptions of modern isekai, then I think we can just stick at 3. Like, the reason I brought up otherworldliness before we started the podcast was that we have very different ideas. So I think we should probably just both say what our conception of an isekai is, and then...
Okay, well, let's get to our first 2 ratings before we get further into that, so we don't confuse the discussion too much. So, Thermite, how spicy was this episode?
Now, you may disagree with me, but I do believe that being bad is itself a form of spice. Like, if you were to show me this as opposed to something like, maybe Tears to Tiara, was that even an isekai? I don't remember. I remember being...
I have no idea what that is.
It was a very, very bland fantasy series, at the very least. Maybe an isekai. But, like, I would not say that this first episode was bland. It definitely had a lot of things where, it'll stick with me. If we go back to this after 99 more episodes, I'll still be able to tell you some things. I doubt I'm going to forget the bear. Or, like, the effect of moving the rocks. So, I do think there's some level of spice there.
See, so how many out of 10, what are you rating it?
I will give it a 4. And I also do want to say that I recently listened to a recap of all of Evangelion, and there were a lot of, like, late-game Evangelion shots that felt very similar to this in terms of, really holding on a frame or just kind of sliding around for a bit, or, the bad effects. So I might be looking at this with a little too much fondness.
That, Ava was a lot more deliberate in what shots it chose to hold on, and it also held shots a lot longer in general. So I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that point, but
sure.
I will agree with you on the general rating of 4 out of 10.
Okay.
Isn't Some may say that getting an almost 5 in a mediocrity contest is the true mediocrity. But leaving that aside, yeah, I think there's definitely some memorable parts, but it mostly comes from how much of a mess this was in terms of editing. I think the most interesting part was the random shots over the, like, meteor rock at the beginning over CG.
Yeah.
Which are just kind of in medias res cuts to something. Otherwise, I don't know. I don't think I think I'll recall a lot of this episode, but that's just because nothing happened in this episode.
I guess that's also a problem. Like, I won't remember any of our main character's abilities apart from, I guess he can make lightning and he can move the rocks.
He had a gun.
Ah, yes, the gun. Which wasn't an
itself
ability.
Not a terribly exciting superpower, considering it's probably the most common superpower people have in real life.
Now,
but
Zaku.
Yes.
May I ask you how much you like it?
Well, after how spicy, I guess it's the question, how nicey is this episode? Like a 3 out of 10?
Okay.
This is a pretty big disappointment, and quite frankly, I think one of the things I most appreciate in any piece of media is an author's strong vision or obsession with something. I love me something, even if it has problems, that has a very clear and direct through line for what it wants to be and what it wants to do. And as someone like that, something that's this messy and unfocused and just like clearly a botch work of too many cooks in the kitchen could just not be less up my alley. Combined with already being in a sort of like world-building power fantasy genre that I don't even really care for. So I'm gonna give this like, I don't want to start too overload the low rating scale. I guess I didn't actively abhor watching this, but I would never in my life recommend anyone ever take out the time to do this themselves. So I guess I'll give it like a 3 out of 10.
All right. I feel like a lot of your thoughts on this do mirror mine. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 10, and I don't know what would get a 1 out of 10. I guess it would just be if it was this level of quality, but it was also offensive. Like, you know, if we had like some very explicit bad, you know, uncomfortable things happening as well. The plot itself was very bland, which I think does save it.
I feel like I'm gonna give it a 3 because I want to leave my bottom room open a bit more for a bit more gradients in what I consider like offensively bad. And maybe after we watch a couple more things, have our eyes opened to how bad it can truly get, I'll bump this up to like a 4, just so I can make a bit more room between this and something that's even worse. But like, considering my expectations were already set super low on this, I can imagine that there's definitely gonna be something that's gonna hit me way harder in terms of just disappointing me if once we get to something I was actually looking forward to being good.
Now, at some point, if we're having too much of a good streak, I could, you know, we could do a return to Arifureta. And by return, I mean either the first episode or maybe the second episode. You know, just to get no tastes, see how things have changed.
Well, personally, I'm not in it to have this taste for a while. And speaking of taste,
oh boy,
how tastefully like another world is this to you?
All right, so I should probably state that when I think of, you know, like how much of an isekai this is, I am thinking of the modern conception of an isekai. I do feel like a big part of the series is going to be us, or when I say series, I mean the podcast. I do think a big part of this is going to be us, you know, figuring out like there are some very strict limits some people put on the genre, but there are a lot of things that do still fit into it. But my conception of what it is was definitely formed in 2015. Like, that was when we started getting like very big booms. It wasn't like when it all started, but it was definitely, you know, like when we first started noticing, oh yeah, every single season of anime definitely has like 3 of these things in it. I'm definitely looking at what is an isekai, quote unquote, with the very modern lens of, if I pick up a thing that has the word isekai on it, I know it's going to have the classroom scene, I know it's going to have X and Y. So with that in mind, I would say this is a I'd say this is a 7 out of 10. In that it has a lot
Yeah.
of the building blocks that I would associate with, this is an isekai, but it doesn't have any otherworldliness to it. It doesn't have anything that makes me go, this is another world. Clearly this is meant to be fantasy inspired, but it feels just vaguely inspired as opposed to this could be a fantasy world or this is a fantasy series. It feels a lot more like there's a vague outline of what this is supposed to be.
Yeah. For me personally, I base my rating on this more on a conceptual view of in another world.
Mm-hmm.
For me, so it has to meet sort of the criteria. Transported to another world. And it has to sort of focus on each of those aspects for me to really count. It's really just to me, one or more of the main characters have to be transported from one world to another, and that has to sort of be the focus. And I think for me, the other world doesn't have to be, as long as it's story-wise another world where traversal between the two is difficult, I think it'll count for me.
Okay.
That said, I do want it to focus on the fact that it is another world and the character was transported to it. In that case, I would give this actually maybe a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
Because, the main character does say he wants to go back at least, which implies that, being transported back and forth is some kind of story focus point. This does seem to be decently foreign to him, although being transported along with his class clearly gives him a little bit more ties to what it is. Instead of being the usual completely fish out of water story, this very much isn't a freed from my convention story so much as a exaggeration of already existing social dynamics. So I think a 7 will probably do decently. It's very close to a more modern conception of an isekai. It's, it's decent, but I feel like you could go harder on the otherworldliness.
I find it amazing that we have two very different ideas of what this is supposed to be, but we both chose a 7 out of 10.
Our scores were very consistent with each other, even though we gave very different explanations from them.
Yeah.
But
there's something interesting about that.
It really goes to show there's many ways to arrive at the same place.
Well, I don't want to arrive at the same place again next week, so what are we doing? What world are we going to next?
The next world we will be visiting is the magnificent world of El Hazard.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm actually more excited for that one because it's old and I don't know a lot about it, and that makes me hopeful. So
I've definitely seen people talk about it. I've definitely been on forums where I've seen people list it out or talk about it, but I've never I don't know anything about it at all. So I'm really curious. The fact that it still has some level of discussion means that it's probably not bad.
Which is all that I can really hope for from the stuff that we watch. So with that said, go check out Thermite's YouTube channel. Go check out Thermite on Twitter.
Yeah, we'll slap all of it in the description. My channel is Dynamite Neko.
We'll be here again, presumably to talk about more isekai next week, El Hazard. And with that, I say goodbye to you. See you in another world.
Oh no, truck!